We've got the title and the first official details for the coming live-action Star Wars series. We've got to break it all down. This is the Nerdy News Rundown. Let's get you filled in. Before we get into the news, I do want to formally and sincerely apologize to Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers. If you didn't see the drama last night, he was very upset with me with some things that I said about the Kathleen Kennedy story in a prior video, and technically I did misrepresent his point. He did not tell people to boycott. In fact, Jeremy does not believe in boycotts as kind of like a rule of thumb, I guess, although he himself did say he was not going to be spending his money on the Solo movie. So, my bad. It was not a lie, it was not intentional, and I do apologize to Jeremy and any of his followers that felt like I was throwing shade or trying to join one side of this fan war. Now, let's get into some juicy Star Wars news. This stuff is super fun. Here we go. Last night, Jon Favreau took to Instagram to not only reveal seemingly what the title of the coming live-action Star Wars series will be, but also some details about its central character. This is the image he put up, and it says, after the stories of Jango and Boba Fett, another warrior emerges in the Star Wars universe. The Mandalorian is set after the fall of the Empire and before the emergence of the First Order. We follow the travails of a lone gunfighter in the outer reaches of the galaxy, far from the authority of the New Republic. There is so much dopeness plugged into just that small little amount of text. It's incredible. So let's break it down, talk about some context that we have from other reports about the show, and even a theory on who this character could be. So first, we should talk about the fact that the show's called The Mandalorian. This is pretty freaking dope. Once again, this was heavily rumored and reported on by Jason and everybody over at MakingStarWars.net. They've been doing a really good job actually at the coverage for this thing. They were on set a couple of days ago. Really cool stuff. The show's called The Mandalorian. It focuses on a lone gunfighter. I find it pretty interesting too that they talk about Jango and Boba Fett and sort of passing of a legacy, so to speak. Now, due to the coverage that we are getting from MakingStarWars.net, we actually have a theory on who this character could be. And it all has to do with the sets of the show and how it appears to take place at least partially on Tatooine and then probably take place on Mandalore itself later in the series. The current theory is that the main character will be a character known as Cobb Vanth. Now, Cobb Vanth is a character from the Aftermath series, which was written by Chuck Wendig, and he is a slave that was freed from Jabba's palace during the events of Return of the Jedi. He finds the Mandalorian armor. He buys it off Jawas who got it out of the Sarlacc. He wears the Mandalorian armor and becomes sort of like a vigilante on Tatooine, doing good, sort of like a moral sheriff of sorts on Tatooine. Now, everything we know about the Cobb Vanth character takes place in different excerpts from the Aftermath series. Now, a lot of these are sort of interludes. They don't connect in a fluid story. The most that we find out about this character is in the last Aftermath book, which also is my favorite of them, actually. But it's really cool, and people are starting to think that this character, specifically because there's some stuff going on Tatooine in the show, the fact that you have Jango and Boba sort of mentioned, and you have this character who's already in canon who seemingly wears that same armor, people are sort of saying that this could be the character. It's also rumored that Game of Thrones star Pedro Pascal will also be the lead for this show, and that he will be this Mandalorian character that once again comes from Jason and everybody at MakingStarWars.net. Now, a lot of people out there are calling this a Boba Fett spin-off of sorts, and the mentioning of Jango and Boba in this excerpt by Jon Favreau is not on accident. I mean, Boba Fett is one of the most popular characters in all of Star Wars. What I think is interesting is he's also a character that's more popular in sort of the older fans, like the people that were more into the original trilogy and even the prequels. Those fans know more about Boba and are more hardcore Boba fans than sort of the newer sequel trilogy type of fans. Now, I'm not saying there's not a huge crossover there, but I think it's intentional that they would mention Jango and Boba Fett, sort of getting people excited about it. And I think it's intentional that the main character here will be very similar to Jango and Boba. Now, on a side note, in the new canon, supposedly Jango and Boba are actually not Mandalorians. So in the old expanded universe and in the old canon, they were considered Mandalorians. Now they're not, and they're considered just people that wear Mandalorian armor. And I've never really had a good explanation for this. It's never been explicitly explained in any canon, at least as far as I'm concerned. And so I'm really hoping that this show will sort of explain that a bit and go into what exactly was going on with Jango and Boba, their relationship with the Mandalorians, and just more in general of where the Mandalorians stand in the thick of things as far as the galaxy is concerned. There is even a chance that Boba Fett is still alive at the beginning of this series, and that would be really, really cool for me. But in general, I'm hoping we get more of an explanation for Boba and also this Vanth character, and just, man, it just seems really exciting. So that is the news out there, guys. The new live-action Star Wars show to be called The Mandalorian, focusing on a lone gunfighter, sort of picking up the mantle of Jango and Boba Fett before him. Disney's definitely trying to make an association between those characters, which are beloved, and this new character. I think this is super hype. I am so excited to be checking out a lone gunman type character hanging out in the outskirts of the galaxy, far from Republic control. This is at a time when the Empire is sort of falling. There's still a little bit of the remnants. It's just going to be so cool to explore the galaxy through this type of a lens. And as I've often said in my coverage, I think this show is going to scratch an itch for a large amount of the fan base. I think that, like, some of the fans that aren't super keen on the sequel trilogy stuff are going to absolutely love this live action show. I think the show is going to be the thing that really puts the fandom back together into a better place. But those are all my thoughts. I want to know what you are thinking about this. What do you think about this synopsis for the live action Star Wars series? What do you think about the Game of Thrones actor Pedro Pascal possibly being the lead? Whatever you are thinking about any and everything regarding this story, let us know in the comment section below. Let's check that nerd card before we get out of here. I want to know, what is the make and model of the blaster rifle that Boba Fett uses? It's pretty iconic. Most of you hardcore nerds will know what it is. Answer that question in the comment section below. And that's going to do it for this Thursday show. I hope everybody's having a good week. We're almost through it. Gonna check out Venom tonight. I'll give you guys my thoughts on that later. But as I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.